Ladies and gentlemen, how you all doing? This is Onord.
Hello.
And folks, today we are here on Coastal Treats. It's a monthly tournament time. Ryan, who do we have?
Left hand side in the blue, we have ElBurro playing Cork 559 with Maverick Income. And on the right hand side in the red, we have Onord, otherwise known as Lord of the PTRS, playing as the Italian Liberation Army with a Maverick Income.
So, we were kind of jesting about this before we really kind of got started. Italians, like you said, before we got started, very much on the cusp of the guys, we're allies, really, kind of moment here. How does that match up against Cork?
Yeah, I mean, both will be the classic infantry spam galore. You know, Sherman should do well in the town. I think it'd be a mostly even matchup. Both decks are pretty similar, though Cork is relying a bit more on the reserve troops to be leading the fight.
Yeah, you said the whole idea about infantry spam, but the funny thing about this is that if you're looking at Cork, they have about 30% more troops, actually. Of course, most of these are in that, Grenadier squad over here in C. But regardless, how is that going to match up? I mean, Italian Liberation, yeah, we have spare odds over here for ElBurro, but for Onord, are the Commandosi that good? Are basically, are the Italians ready to kind of liberate, or is this...
I think that quality troops, especially the Maro's regime being brought into the center town, can do a lot of damage. He definitely will have the CQC advantage, which is pretty big on a map like this. And we're also just seeing up north as well, like a decent amount of those LVF troops being brought on in. So we might see some hot playoffs north.
True. Actually, one thing that's kind of fun for me, if I'm thinking about this year, is that Cork does actually have a lot of those early light vehicles, and I have a soft spot for light vehicles the same way they have a soft spot in their armor.
Yeah, it's a Panzer Museum in 44.
Yeah, it's like, oh man, putting out those relics. It's like when you play 5th edition with, I don't know, 40k, you're like, yes, give me that Tau, and you realize, wait, this is 9th now, and you just want to, like, smack yourself silly. Or so I've heard. I'm not, into the blue guys too much. Regardless. It's Maverick. We know we want this game done in, 20 minutes, or we get that free pizza. Who's going to come out ahead for this, do you think?
I'm just looking at it so far. Onord, okay, he had a decent push going on in the center, but it has lost a bit of steam. He also was meant to capture the town just south of the central town position. It does seem ElBurro is investing quite a bit in its northern push, bringing in some Verona Suchins as well. But yeah, the problem for ElBurro here is he's having to break free CQC positions, and his infantry just aren't that good in CQC. Yeah, so his LVS Assures have 9 SMGs, but they're not Barata SMGs, so he might as well go home.
True. Very, very true. I've seen early Spitfire coming in for some recon, which actually I very much like. I'm surprised I haven't seen more of it. The other thing I'm kind of struck by here is the fact that we have triple Bredas with a 47 mil in the center, and that's Fortress Roma right there. Also, while we weren't looking, the Arietta Amplane comes on in that northern push. Well, there's no more northern push.
Oh, and he has brought out some artillery and 81 mil to help his push, but it came a little bit too late, and Onord will be able to actually counterattack past the artillery and get into an even better CQC spot.
Is certainly true, and honestly, I kind of wish he had brought it to 81 mil, maybe like a minute earlier. Not for nothing, I feel like any single time we're going to be going into a heavily wooded area, part of a town, crossing a busy street, like you want to have some tube artillery there, just at least soften things up a bit,
Yeah, ElBurro is really going to rely quite a bit on fire support, such as the artillery, aircraft, heck, some of the few heavy tanks you get as well. But at the same time, the Italian Liberation Army gets some really good cheap artillery. Those Italian 75 mils and heck even 100 mils have bloody radios. And for 75 points for radio-based howitzer, yes, it might belong in the previous war. That's still a very good artillery piece.
True. Now, the funny thing I'm looking at over here is looking at a Pioneer, Pioneer, wrong army, and the Commandosi, and frankly, one-on-one between the two. The Commandosi, he's got a Piat, so I can't really respect him too much there, but the Pioneer might be one of the few infantry squads that one-on-one can stand up to a lot of the Italian Liberation stuff.
Yeah, just being able to chuck that big grenade and get that massive alpha damage will help out quite a bit. But we are also seeing just the push of the Maros and the Gustatories as just a pretty beefy strike group, and he's managing to pick off these Germans one by one. And French.
There's a piece of me that's confused. Oh, the point of 34 is engaged in the 47 mil. So it's a wet noodle contest, going from the 47 mil perspective anyway.
Yeah.
But I'm fascinated by the northern side because for some reason the Italians decide to peek their head out from the trees, which, well, that's not the greatest way to have a long life.
Yeah, he pushed up a little bit too much, and he's going to be paying the price, as all the Sickeroons and the armoured cars are going to provide some lovely fire support, and this should give ElBurro a good chance to get a foothold back into that forest.
Kind of even more devastating is the fact that he's running right back through the tube artillery by falling back, which is that oh man, like that is the worst feeling in the world. You're like, okay, I'm falling back, and I'm marching my troops to the other side, and you're like, and I'm going through an artillery barrage. This is fun.
Seeing not so much an emergency, but a counterplay bomber up north to deter ElBurro from making much progress. Not getting that great of a hit. Those anti-aircraft gun is.
You know, I'm thinking about it now. Having an anti-aircraft gun that's depressed, well, is it really an anti-aircraft gun? Do you think it's depressed? You're shooting more like tanks on the level, so...
It just slowly turns itself into regular artillery, loses the anti-aircraft role.
Exactly. For those of you outside, right now who are just groaning at that dad joke, I'm sorry, I'm getting into practice. So,
they should know at this point what to expect from our channels.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. I think you meant from me overall. And I was like, it's been a bit of a time since an update video, but I guess maybe. Nah, we'll keep that for another time. Fusilieri, these guys right here. Again, they're basically British. They're Italian troops with British weapons, so they're practically British. But the Fort Bren guns, I actually have to respect that a bit.
Yeah, they can dish out a whole heap of firepower at longer range, and also at CQC not like terrible because they are the close range machine guns at least. Yes. But he's managing to get a decent foothold once again back into the central town position, especially with the Maros being brought on up. Problem with ElBurro is that his infantry alone cannot hold up against the Italian infantry, as we clearly see.
The thing is it's not going to be over here for another 2 minutes plus until he can get some really, really solid kind of vehicle support. Yeah, he's got some T-34s, he's got some off-player pens, as you can see in the 742s that are right there. Which, now that I think about it, are what, T-70s? T-70s? No.
Oh yeah, it was BT-7s.
Thank you. You're right, thank you. It's been you're the War Thunder man, not me. No, but it's not like he doesn't have any vehicles, just I don't think that he's really pushing in an area to see those vehicles be more effective. Like, maybe drive those vehicles, even the 742s, northeast. Cut off that forest position.
Yeah.
Giant areas, yes sir.
He needs to be using his tanks a bit more efficiently. I mean, also at the same time, Onord can actually fight pretty well with his own tanks. He doesn't have as many, but he has better quality of the sermons for sure, especially in town fights, because you got that lovely stabilizer.
True.
We're also just seeing as well, like Onord is getting a very good artillery battery up and running. He's got 75mm up north, 100mm in the center, and then he's using them very effectively to stress out ElBurro's troops here.
Well, the great thing here, too, is check out this southern column that's happening in. Commandosi, Morfusilieri, heck, he's got a steward in there, Gustatori with the Paras. And on the other side, everything's being deployed into that town. They're looking for a knockdown, drag-out fight because everyone's afraid to say, I can't handle this town. Which means that this reinforcement block that's coming in, look to see this punch creep around that town. See that nice little arterial right where the two Sicherungs are falling back to the southwest?
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be a beautiful little line there. Watch to have this kind of just penetrate and probably drive towards this flag and, heck, optimistically, all the way to the southwest. It's really going to be a question of whether or not that 85mm and the T-60 can kind of support this or stop that really before it gets too much.
Yeah, these light tanks can provide a whole heap of fire support, and this is, yeah, even the 47mm can actually, this is the targets. We've went back 4 years in the war, and fighting guns or tanks with 47 mils can actually blow up.
Mm-hmm. It's very, very true. Not to be outdone though, there's a Maro Fusilier and Gustatorio paratrooper from the north, and again, I'm not the biggest fan of this kind of rampant aggression. I would think you hold the 50-yard line. There's really no point to you driving here. There's maybe 2 flags if you're very, very lucky, but it's a lot easier to defend that western side with a minimal amount of troops. Now, ElBurro might be a little bit aggressive with it.
I think he is trying to get flag. He's bringing in that Sherman, which will provide him a bit of long-range fire support. You're also seeing a Flak 88 being brought out here from ElBurro. I think if there's maybe a little bit more infantry, he might be able to capture at least that 1 flag on the road. It's not the best position to be in, but if he does do that, it would be a 15-9.
Sure. True, and of course, the Caster's Curse is kicking in for me. It is, in fact, going to be a 15-9, at least for a little bit. But there's going to be a para squad moving on, P-Grunt squad, rather, from the other direction, moving on in here. But this is a serious Flak 88, so he can actually shell those guys all day and then some.
Yeah. Provide some much-needed fire support, which has really been ElBurro's downside here. I mean, of course, he is playing Kuruk. Got to give him a bit of slack, just like with the SS Schupos, but he just needs to be using his tanks a bit more efficiently. I think for him, those Tigers will prove to be quite useful, especially in the center position. You know, at the same time, the Italian Liberation Army does get 17 pounders, and the 17 pounders are pretty good at pounding those Tigers back to the Western Front.
True, but a 17 pounder still requires you to be rather, relatively speaking, rather immobile. Which is probably the biggest and best thing that the Tiger has going for, is that mobility over the top of... Oh, geez, I was watching the 742, but it, no-scoped that Sherman 1 in the side. But no, that's fair. You're absolutely correct on that. That's certainly fair.
We're seeing that 75 mil will get some very good hits in the 88, going to be rendering it combat ineffective already, and that Sherman is hooking around, probably going to ambush those T-70s as they come around the corner.
Well, they're taking the road less traveled by just kind of going through the, air quotes, light forest. But even with that in mind, I mean, geez, those T-70s are not going to be able to penetrate that Sherman. They'll be firing tennis balls at them.
We can't be too harsh on the forest. It's on a diet, Khan.
That, you know what? I've been trying to respect it. I think it's something like slimmer. I don't want to miss the forest for the trees, or the trees for the forest. So, I just want to respect everybody in terms of how they're feeling.
The Sherman just absolutely slaps you. 2 for 2, knocking out the T-70s. And we are seeing a bunch of infantry unload, and these guys do have Panzerfaust. Once again, it just comes down to the CQC problem. These guys cannot go toe-to-toe in a forest against Gustatories.
True. That is certainly true. So the question really becomes, who's going to be a beach first? Which will be the Sherman, will be with a spare of a bat, or heck, maybe even that 88 mil is for some reason being super aggressive to this. He's not even going to get a shot off.
Yeah, that is quite risky, especially considering his morale damage. Yeah, and at close range, he buggers up the shot.
Yep. And even then, losing crewmen for left, right, and center, he's going to take that extra morale damage. Maybe not the... I guess I understand the intellectual part of it, but maybe the implementation was a little bit less standard.
Yep. I've seen a good old recon Spitfire, probably just trying to spot the infantry as they come on through for his artillery, and oh boy, he has quite a bit of a reinforcement column, yeah. 105 mil, as well as a whole platoon of angry Italians.
Oh, and 2 fighter bombers coming in as well.
Oh.
So
good for him.
Yeah, I mean, you want the Italians to do well, figuring that they haven't really had a lot of time on top since the Romans, and works out pretty well for them.
Yeah, and he's going to completely shut down that push.
Exactly. And with that, the Sherman comes to a very aggressive approach, and actually, I like this by comparison, because there's not the same level and opportunity for penetration.
Yeah, and we're seeing in the center as well. Really not much has changed too much in the center. 1 LVF squad has managed to get behind enemy lines, but I think ElBurro is trying to make something happen here. He's bringing in a bunch of reinforcements, but Onord has a good amount of armor in there and a good amount of infantry, support weaponry, and without like good tank fight support, which ElBurro does not have, he's not going to make much progress yet.
Highly unlikely. Well, the Flak 37 unfortunately is going to find himself going down pretty quickly here. And with all that extra half track, yep, that reinforcement column from ElBurro not going the best.
No, we're seeing the Tiger being brought out here. He's going to have to clutch it.
He's blind now, too. I mean, never mind. He can see. Sherman is quite blind, or rather dead. But I still don't think I really relish ElBurro's chances over here on the northern side.
No, I mean, that Tiger can do a lot of damage, and it's not a whole lot of anti-tank here, which is beneficial for him. But there's only so much one tank can do.
True. Also, very, very lucky for those Italians. You can see right now, sorry, the Italians. For Korik, with that Z-1007 coming on in, dropped an awful lot of ordnance. Luckily for those guys below, the run-up Pioneers, also quite stressed out. So,
yeah,
not the best opportunity to drop bombs when you're taking a lot of ground fire. So,
and we're seeing the Shermans maneuver around the town. Oh, one of them getting blapped, yeah. Was that by a Panzerfaust or Fausttown? I think that was, and the other one doing a good job keeping back those Rhino Pioneers, and with the lack of anti-tank here from ElBurro, he's going to have a very hard time dealing with those Shermans. And also just the constant artillery support here is really just putting the nail in the coffin. If you look down south, it's just completely opened up.
Well, yeah, there's that penetration that we were talking about before. There was the 88 that was there. There was a small garrison that was inside along that road. But there you go. It's 17-7 right now, and I don't know. The only reason it's not 18-6 is that northernmost flag was dropped, at least for the moment, into the Grenadiers' kind of control. And I feel like once this half-track squirts around that tree line, it's going to get pretty ugly again.
Yeah. We're just seeing in the town as well is also getting tracked by artillery, and that's on top of the CQC troops and the Shermans. I mean, ElBurro is not going to be able to make much forward progress at this point. Also, just the constant airplane strikes, Jesus.
Yeah, I am surprised we haven't seen the same investment from ElBurro.
Same. That's kind of the core gimmick, is to use aircraft spam.
I mean, we saw 410 early on. I don't think that 410 died, but we haven't seen. I think we've seen one real bombing run. There we go. There's another guy coming on in, the 410, and the Crusader. That's good enough there. Well, that's gonna happen. In any particular case, though, 17-7. I think these Grenadiers are going to try to push to the east, and they're going to find themselves riding alone in green fields with the sun on their face.
Yeah, it's a bit of a better location for them because they can actually shoot long range, but with even just a 50 cal half track and the Tiger not getting into a position to actually blow him up, he's going to take a decent amount of casualties.
Yeah. Well, in the Bren group, like you said, this is not we're sniping from 1,200 meters. We're still way closer than we need to be with that 750. And geez, yeah, you can see right now they're just getting carved to shreds by that Ma Deuce. No, excuse me, not the Ma Deuce, by the Brownie M19.
Indeed, and yeah, it's just. I think it also really goes to show, just especially since release, Korik's infantry is not good. Like, infantry now, especially with DLC divisions, has really upped the bar. I mean, these Italian troops have some fantastic CQC troops, as I keep mentioning through the cast. Even just the Maro Brens as well can go, like, toe-to-toe with most and all German Schrods at long range.
Though, ironically, none of them, in fact, carry a bar.
That's true. There's not really that many bars in this game.
Well, it was more of a dry front. There certainly were operations where I think guys got themselves into a couple bottles or here or there, but usually they were throwing them for Molotov cocktails, so there's that. Bit of a push in the town. There's that surviving Sherman. He's trying to find 42 Wallaby Way, Sydney, and for right now he's just finding Pioneer positions instead.
Slowly blapping him. Panzer II's trying their darndest here. Actually getting some good infantry hits, but once he moves up a bit closer, that Sherman's going to have something to say. And it's probably not going to be nice.
Nope, and that was in fact the case. And with that, I think we're playing the swan song here for ElBurro. His time on this particular battlefield, I mean, he's managed to get the map looking somewhat like a profile shot of Porky Pig. Early Porky, mind you.
Oh yeah.
But looking a little bit further down, yes, we have some, T-34 Ronas being brought on in, but we have vaccines for Rona now, so, I mean, those things are getting picked off one by one.
And not much of a threat.
Exactly. Exactly. And like you said, we haven't reached. They have 57 mils here. They didn't bring, actually, any 17-pounders in, I don't think.
No, there was no need to. It's mainly just the artillery and all the fantastic fire support from the Liberation Army has allowed him to liberate the battlefield.
Yes, indeed. And while I would normally go and start laughing at the Crusader tanks, they can't stop all of the air attacks, but at long last, at one Henschel coming in to take out one half-track, unfortunately, not quite enough.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm not too surprised by the KD.
Thanks. Which is a shame. So Korok, I think, is one of those groups that, like, you want to have them do well, even though
it's
you know
the meme
they're not going
division.
to.
I give ElBurro credit for playing Korok because they are not a good division. At release, they had some kind of meme use, but now there's just... If you want to play meme reserve division, you play 52nd now.
Yes, that seems probably pretty fair here. And you can see it right now with a 47 mil taking out a T-34, a T-60, two P2s, two P3s. Like,
wow.
When a 47 mil can do that, you know you're up a certain creek. And there's not too many paddles around.
Yeah, it's honestly... That matchup works really well for the Italians. Those 47 mils are usually crap because you're up against T-34 spam or like Panzer 4s or Sug 3s. But when you're up against Panzer 2s and just the history museum areas of tanks, you can easily deal with him.
Yes. Yes. And that's kind of the great thing about it. If it's a little bit kind of sad at times because it's kind of like, well, I'm not gonna say what it's kind of like, but it's unfortunate to see with Karuk, but it's nice to see them still get played. Yeah. But well done over here to Onord, or as I guess his new title is, the Lord of the PTRS. Although again, ironically, no PTRSs were harmed in the making of this video.
Oh.
And ElBurro, better luck next time, I suppose. But I think that's going to about do it for us today. So I suppose, unless you have anything to add, sir?
Nope.
Well, in that case, folks, that's going to be it. So, until next time, I'm Conor.
I'm Rangru. Take it easy.